I read 50 books, and here's what I learned. Make sure you stay till the end to find out the most important thing, because if you don't know this, you can actually waste years of your life. Okay, the first thing to do, if you're struggling to get into the habit, is you've got to set the setting, get in the right environment, start reading. If you don't like reading as it is, it's a struggle to start and to learn. But eventually, reading starts to hit the dopamine centers and you start to really enjoy it. But how do you get to that stage? So first of all, you need to make sure the setting that you're in is a good setting. What do I mean by that? Make sure if you've got colored lights, make sure the room's clean. If you want to have some snacks or a tea, coffee, get your feet up, get nice and cozy. Just be in an inspiring environment. Don't have any distractions. Put your phone outside, turn the TV off. Just get rid of all that distraction, okay? And then you'll just read a page or two at the start and start slowly, okay? Start slowly, and then build your way up. Eventually, if you don't find the right book right away, you'll find the right book after a few books, and you'll really enjoy it, and you kind of will be looking forward to that reading time. Secondly, is to make sure you make a habit of it, okay? So if you read the book Atomic Habits, a key thing that really helped me to this is to like add on a new habit to an existing old habit that you already have like anchored in your day, and one thing that doesn't change day to day. Like for example, if you were to anchor it to a habit like going to the gym, if you miss the gym that day, you're probably going to miss the habit of reading as well. But let's say you anchored it to having your dinner or brushing your teeth in the morning, or if you, I don't know, whatever you do that you do every day without fail, anchor it to that, okay? And then there's obviously going to be days where you don't want to read, okay? And just keep the habit up by reading like, you know, if you get in the habit of reading 10 pages or whatever, or a chapter, and you really don't want to read that night, there's nothing wrong with just reading one page, but you got to keep the habit up. That's the most important thing, whether it's one page, half a page, a sentence, I don't know. And there's nothing wrong if you're not motivated for like a whole week or 2 weeks, you know, just reading a page a day just to keep the habit up. That's fine, because otherwise you can lose habit and you're not reading anything. So one page a day for a longer period of time is probably better to do. And the next thing is, if you're not enjoying a book, just make sure that you know it's not a bad thing if you just want to stop reading the book. There's a lot of people online, like Bill Gates, for example, and other people saying that it's like really important to finish the book that you're reading. Like he doesn't pick up a book unless he thinks he's going to finish it, and it means that in his head he has to finish every book he reads. But what I found is that if you come across a book that's really boring, although the information may be valuable, I'm talking to people who are like non-fiction readers, people who like to read things that are going to better themselves. Like now and again you're going to get a book where the person who's written the book is, let's say, a master of the skill that you're trying to learn rather than reading, writing. So they might be a master marketer, for example, but they've never written a book before. And then when you read the book, the way they've done it, you can tell that they found it a long slog, because all the sentences are like 50 words long. They're not using clear language. It's not really a spirit of inspiration coming out of the book. It's just like a long, laborious read. And like, it depends on how important that book is in the field, because, you know, there's the Pareto principle thing where like 80% of the value is provided by 20% of the books in that field. So there'll be like some fields where there'll be like a couple of books that are just groundbreaking, and if you read those books you'll learn the majority, and then you can learn like additional readings on top of that. If it's like a really important book, then you just got to slowly get yourself through it. But what can happen is if you find a book that's really boring, that you find boring and hard to read, it can unmotivate you, demotivate you from wanting to read. And literally, I remember reading Plato, okay, and I read his whole fucking set of works, and like, I started to find it as interesting as it was. I didn't find it quite applicable in my day-to-day life, and at the time I was thirsty for things that I'm finding applicable to day-to-day life, and I literally stopped reading for a year and a half. This was a couple of years ago, because I just kept on putting that book off, and then I just forgot about reading. I put it off for so long, and it happened recently as well with this other marketing book. I won't mention the name of that marketing book, but it was just so boring. After a while, I was just like, Jesus, when will this thing end? It's just so long. But then you find other books, like I'm a big fan of all the Napoleon Hill books, because the way the spirit in which is like emanating from that book is one of like inspiration, and I could read those books just forever. They're so good. But like, if you're finding a book that's insanely boring, and it's got to be insanely boring, there's nothing wrong with putting that book down and finding a new book just to read. But try and not get into the habit of just sacking off every book that you're reading, because you're not fine. There's going to be bits of every book where you just like wanting to get further to the end, because let's say there's another book that's caught your eye and that's exciting you, and you're halfway through reading this book and you're just thinking about, I want to read that next book. Well, that's what happens to me anyway. But try not, if it's just that I want to read that next book, don't skip it. Stay with the book that you're on. But if it's like, this is laborious and I'm really dreading reading every night or 5 days a week or whatever, and you just don't want to do anymore, sometimes it is better just to sack off the book. Okay. And here's the final thing, and this is the most important thing that I've found. Okay. And it's actually essential, because if you're wanting to read to learn things and better yourself, you need to be able to actually process the information and learn from it. So the one thing that you should not do is put a time limit on reading a certain amount of books. So you hear all the entrepreneurs of the internet saying, an entrepreneur should read 58 million books a year, or something, whatever the current number is of that specific video that you're watching. That sure, there's a benefit to reading more if you're a fast reader and all that kind of stuff, but if your target is just to cram in 50 books a year or whatever, or read it, your target, instead of your target being learning and absorbing the information out of the book, it's switched to, okay, I'm just going to try and finish this book as fast as I possibly can. My target is to read 10 pages. You end up not even absorbing it. And you just go, okay, read that page, read that page, read that page, read that page. You read 10 pages. What did they say? I don't know, because I wasn't really concentrating. I was just trying to read each word as fast as I could so I can hit my target of reading 50 books a year. I made this mistake ages ago. I wanted to, so I'm not the fastest reader in the world, because the way my brain works, my brain is I like to build up foundations of knowledge. So if I learn something new, I like to add it to a foundation. It gives me a deeper understanding of things, but it takes a while to add it to. But once I know it for good, and I've got a real good understanding of it. But so I'm quite a slow reader because of that. So I gave myself a target of reading literally 12 books in a year. Okay, this was when I first started reading. This was about 7 years ago, and I read the 12 books in the year, but I wasn't concentrating, and that whole year's worth of books, like, I can barely remember anything from them because I wasn't fully concentrating on absorbing the information and actually learning from the book and taking out the information and adding it and understanding it. So what's better to do is, you do naturally speed up. Like last year, I read like 24 books or something like that, but I actually read and understood them. And there's also a couple of those in there were audiobooks, to be fair. But I actually read and understood them just from, like anything. Like if you're in a sport, and you just get better over time and you get faster, and you can learn things easier just from habitually doing it. But if you're starting out or at any time, it's, in my opinion, it's better to be a bit slower and actually have your focus on extracting information, actually understanding what the book is trying to portray to you. Like, if you don't understand something quite clearly, or ChatGPT or Grok or Google, whatever you want to research, and it's better actually to look up and understand and make sure you're actually familiar with what they're trying to communicate to you. Um, so then it makes the rest of the book more understandable, because like if you don't understand the key concept and you kind of like skip past it because it's like, well, I've got a target to read, I've got to read 20 pages a day or whatever, like I don't really fully understand it, but I've got to hit 20 pages. Then later down in the book, 100 pages later, it'll be bringing up concepts that you should have learned from earlier in the book, but you don't understand the concepts, which means these concepts later on in the book you don't understand either. But it doesn't matter to you because your target is to read as fast as you can. So the key thing, because you can waste years of just like, you will be reading but won't be actually bettering yourself. The key thing is to actually take your time and understand what is being communicated to you in the book. And this should make your journey compound, and actually you will be moving forward this way.